That's what it looks like with all of the tools opened up. Like having a Black & Decker in the woods, look. There we go. Another fabulous summer morning. Right, so here we've got the Victorinox Huntsman Swiss Army knife, and I was recently asked, what are all those tools for and how do you use them? Apparently there's 15 different features on here, so we're going to try and use as many of them as we can. So this is my go-to Swiss Army knife. It is the Victorinox Huntsman, as I said earlier on, and I've had this since 30th of September 2016. So this was a gift from my brother James and his wife Rochelle for my best man duties at their wedding. I did already have one of these, and it just so happens that they bought me the same model. I originally went for the Huntsman because it had the best tool set, I thought anyway, for the type of camp tasks that I was doing. So according to the Victorinox website, this has got 15 different functions. That's what the knife looks like. Or I say knife, it's a multi-tool. That's what it looks like with all of the tools opened up, but obviously you wouldn't use it in that setup. Although it's a multi-tool, I've always called this a Swiss Army knife, so I may as well start with the knife blades and show you how I use this kind of tool. So there's two blades on this knife. The larger one, the actual cutting surface is only around 2 inches long, and the shorter blade's only around 30 centimetres, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. Most of the time I tend to use the large blade, and I use it for food preparation, cutting mistake when I'm about to eat it. The other night I actually used the shorter blade for cutting mistake with. I would love a bit of English, thank you. It's not the perfect blade for your English mustard though. The larger blade is great for making tent pegs and little feather sticks. So I'm just going to make a little tent peg. The blades come really sharp already. So there's the point for my little tent peg. Can, if you want, carve a little notch into it as well for your cordage to go. The smaller blade works just as well. So next up, we've got the saw blade. Now, don't be deceived by this little blade, it is really, really sharp. The angle of the blade means it cuts in both the push and the pull stroke. I'm not going to cut anything off a live tree, so I'll use this little branch here just to demonstrate. Well, try and demonstrate, because it's not very sturdy. However, as you can see, saws. It's a really powerful bit of kit, to be honest, for something that fits in your pocket anyway. The saw blade's also got a 90-degree spine there, which is great for sparking a fire steel, which I'll show you that in a bit. So the next tool is the scissors. Again, this is a really handy tool to have in your pocket. The little spring means that the scissors open back up. I use this for cutting plasters, bandages, packaging, as well as oak leaves if you haven't brought any packaging with you to open. It's good for, when you want an accurate cut that you can't really do with a knife. So if you wanted a little square bit of gauze or something to go on a wound before you put some bandaging on it, you could do that. So scissors, another great tool. You can get different versions that have a different tool set. You can have some that have got pliers in if you don't use scissors. You can get I think the Swiss Champ is probably about that thick, 3 or 4 times as thick as this, and it's got, well, far more tools anyway, but I wanted something that was much more compact and just had a basic variety of tools with them. Right, next up we have got bottle opener, we've got flathead screwdriver. You can also use this as a mini pry bar. there is a wire stripper in there. I haven't brought any bottles of beer with me today, but I did use this tool the other night when I was out camping in the woods with Potsy. Here we go, look. Bit of advertising there, look. I'm not getting paid for.
We'll love you down in Cornwall.
What a tool. There's nothing worse than being handed a bottle of beer and not being able to open it. The screwdriver is self-explanatory. There isn't a crosshead or Phillips screwdriver on this tool. There's a 6mm screwdriver, and then there's also, on this little tool, there's a 3mm screwdriver there. That's a can opener as well. I've not brought any cans to open with me. Basically, you stab that into the can, and then you just lever it around till your can of beans is open. The wire stripper is not really any use to me. It's not as if I can plug any electricals in around here, is it? I'll see if I can demonstrate how it works on this little twig. So you'd put your wire in the groove there like that, and then you would just pull it out, and that would strip the wire like it is stripping the bark off this little tiny twig. Can you see? Next up, we've got this weird hooky kind of thing. I've got no idea what it's called, but what I use it for is if you need to really wrench on some kind of cordage to tighten it up. So you'd put the cordage through that little hook and you would pull it really tight. You can also use it if you've got a piece of cordage and you want to wrap it and tie it round a bunch of logs that you want to carry, and then you just pick it up like that, and then you've got a handle for carrying your bunch of logs. Something like this really. So that would be wrapped around your logs, and then you'd be able to carry it. So up next we've got the reamer, the needle, the awl, whatever you want to call it. I mainly use this tool for putting holes in wood. So it's like a little drill basically. Can you see the little hole in the middle there? So that you can place some thread through it as well, and this makes a very crude needle. So you put your thread through, punch it through whatever it is you wanted to sew, and then repeat the process really until you've sewn a little stitch line. Very crude, but in a pinch it would do a job. But this is how I've mainly used it. So you put this, you need to be careful though, because they can sometimes flick back, but you stab it into your piece of wood, and you just twist it round. You have to make sure you go in the direction of the blade, but this will allow you to put a hole in the wood. So it's come through the back of the wood there, and you go from the other side just to clean things up a little bit. So then you could put your thread or your paracord through there, do whatever you wanted. Or you could also use it just to start a hole if you wanted a bigger hole in there. You could finish it off with your blade. So you could get a larger blade and then start going like this with it if you wanted a larger hole. It's like having a Black & Decker in the woods, look. Here we go. Yeah, so that is the reamer or the awl. There's the cutting blade I was telling you about. It is quite sharp on there as well, so I always turn it that way, and then that little bit there just scoops the wood out of the way. You might have noticed these colourful things on there, so they don't come with the knife. So these are something that I've added myself. So there is, if you unscrew that there, a mini tiny fire steel. And then this bit here is just some tinder. So you would cut this up, fluff it up a little bit, and you'd be able to get a little flame going to start a fire. Never used that before. I will try it in a second. But underneath there is the corkscrew. So I haven't brought a bottle of wine with me again today, but I did use this the other night. It's the first time I've actually used the corkscrew. I was going to film this video that night, but so that's why I used the wine bottle as an example. But yeah, conversation was just good, and never got to finish in the video because it chucked it down next morning. Screw it in. Right. Not actually used this to open a wine before. Come on. Whoop. Works a treat, look. So that's your corkscrew and a little place to hold your mini fire kit. Let's go on to the end. We've got a couple more things. So we've got a tiny toothpick. That's self-explanatory. If you want to dig a bit of steak out of your teeth around the campfire. And then you've got the other end, some mini tweezers. So these are great if you've got splinters, pulling those out, or maybe you've got a tick or something like that in here that you need to pull out and you haven't got a tick remover. This will do a great job for that. You can, I've seen where people swap one of these out, maybe the toothpick, for a bigger little fire starter. Look at it, it's a bit battered there, look. It's had some use though, this has. Right, let's have a little bit of fun. So I brought with me a large fire steel or ferro rod. We'll see if we can get a little fire started anyway. So last week when I was in the woods, I got a little bit of birch bark. I have got that in my bag, but I'm see if I can get some of this wet stuff lit. You can see just how wet the trees are, look. We've had a lot of rain, but some of this bark may still light. We'll give it a bash anyway. Make sure to only peel off the loose stuff that's off the edge. Don't go cutting into the bark at all. It does feel very wet, so I'm not sure how easy it's going to light, but we'll give it a go. So this is the back side of the tree. Feels a little bit drier actually. Right, I found a little bit of a rock. So I find if you get a decent bit of the birch bark, if you just like scrape it up a little bit, get some shavings on there, they are often easier to light. I don't want to be scraping through the bark because I don't want to knacker my blade on the rock. Like I mentioned earlier, the back of your saw, I'm hoping this sparks. There we go, look. I'm just going to do this. There we go. So then you're better off getting quite a bit of this bark. It's got a high concentration of resin in the wood. It's gone out, look, because it's wet. The drier the wood, the better, obviously. Something about this, playing with fire. We've been doing it as man for thousands of years. Just goes to show that it's difficult to make fire when it's wet, but it is possible when you've got the right natural materials. But let's have a go with this. I've not used it before. Look at the size of that. Size difference in ferro rods. And this is your tinder. So you would cut a little bit of this off. I'm going to use half of it. You can either just pull this out with your fingers like that. This is it's like a cotton wool that's impregnated with wax, I think. So you just fluff it up like that. I'm guessing anyway. Get some fibres sticking up. And then we need our saw blade again, which is here. Now this is very delicate. So it's much easier to probably put your blade actually like this. So I do it face down. Like that, look. Over the tinder. In fact, I'm going to swap hands. So the blade is holding the tinder down like that. Then just get my finger on there. There we go. There we go in. There we go, look. You got a fire from this little tiny thing. Very clever. Obviously you would save this extra bit of tinder to start the next fire. You can actually make fires from, probably get 4 fires out of one of those things if you used it more frugally. And that should burn for a couple of minutes, which you'll probably get your fire going if you've got some feather sticks or some thinly sliced wood. Right, so that is how I use my Victorinox Huntsman Swiss Army knife. Hope you found some of that interesting. It got me out the door, and who doesn't like making sparks with a ferro rod? But that's it for this one. I'm off home. I'll see you tomorrow.